My brother Marcus became a doctor at 29. Orthopedic surgeon. Top of his residency class. Within 5 years he'd opened Riverside Medical Center, a state-of-the-art orthopedic clinic that became the go-to facility for sports injuries in our region. Our parents threw him a grand opening that made the society pages. I wasn't in any of the photos. Ryan's still figuring things out, Mom would explain when relatives asked about me. Not everyone finds their path as quickly as Marcus. What they meant was, Ryan dropped out of his master's program, bounced between odd jobs, and refused to follow any conventional career trajectory. They weren't wrong about the facts. I did leave my MBA program at Northwestern after 1 semester. I did work seemingly random positions. Research assistant at a small firm, analyst at a company no one recognized, consultant for organizations I never named. I lived in a modest townhouse in what my family called the wrong part of town, drove a 7-year-old Subaru and bought my clothes from outlet malls. To the Chen family I was the disappointment. The one with potential who never lived up to it. Marcus made sure everyone knew the difference between us. Ryan's doing, what exactly these days? He'd ask at family gatherings, his voice filled with concern that barely masked contempt. Still with that weird research thing? I'm working in investment analysis, I'd reply. Investment analysis. He'd smile, that condescending smile he'd perfected in medical school. That's what we're calling unemployment now? The relatives would laugh. Dad would look away. Mom would change the subject. And I'd stay quiet, letting them believe whatever narrative made them comfortable. The truth was far more complicated. But I learned early that my family didn't want complicated. They wanted simple. Marcus was the success. I was the failure. Explaining reality would only create cognitive dissonance they weren't equipped to handle. So I worked my random jobs, built my portfolio, and let them think whatever they wanted. Marcus's medical practice became his identity. Riverside Medical Center wasn't just a clinic. It was his monument. He hired the best surgeons, installed cutting-edge equipment, and attracted patients from 3 states away. He talked about it constantly. We did 14 ACL reconstructions this week, he'd announce at Sunday dinners. And we're expanding to a second location. The investors are very excited about our growth trajectory. Investors? I'd asked once, genuinely curious. Private equity group, he'd said dismissively. Anonymous investor, actually. Smart people who recognize quality when they see it. They put in significant capital for our expansion. How much capital? 2.7 million. Not that you'd understand what that means in a medical context. He'd smiled. It's venture funding, Ryan. Serious business. Probably beyond your pay grade. I'd nodded and said nothing. What I didn't say was that I understood venture funding perfectly. I understood it because I'd structured the deal myself. Because the anonymous private equity group was Apex Strategic Holdings, the investment firm I'd founded 4 years earlier. Because I'd personally overseen the due diligence, approved the terms, and authorized the capital deployment. But telling Marcus that would have required explaining my entire life, and I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. The extended Chen family gathered 4 times a year. Christmas, Easter, 4th of July, and Thanksgiving. Mandatory attendance. No exceptions. This Easter fell on a beautiful April Sunday. Mom hosted at her house, the same sprawling colonial where Marcus and I grew up. By noon, 40 relatives filled the dining room, living room, and sprawling back deck. I arrived in my Subaru wearing khakis and a polo shirt from the Gap. Marcus pulled up in his new Mercedes wearing Armani. The contrast wasn't lost on anyone. Ryan. Aunt Susan intercepted me at the door. How are you, sweetheart? Still doing that consulting thing? Yes, Aunt Susan. Still consulting. That's nice. Very nice. She patted my arm sympathetically. Marcus just got back from a medical conference in Switzerland. First class, naturally. But I'm sure your work is fulfilling too. I smiled. It is. Thank you. Inside, Marcus was holding court in the living room, surrounded by uncles and cousins. He was in the middle of a story about a complex surgery he'd performed on a professional athlete. Completely reconstructed the shoulder joint, he was saying. 6 hours of surgery. The team's GM called me personally to thank me. Said I saved their season. Everyone murmured appreciatively. He spotted me and waved. Ryan, come here. I want to tell you about the reunion. I walked over. The family reunion, an event we held every 5 years, rotating between different family branches. This year it was Uncle James's turn to host. He'd rented a country club for the entire weekend in July. It's going to be incredible, Marcus continued. Uncle James is going all out. Golf tournament, formal dinner, the works. Everyone's bringing their kids to show off their accomplishments. He paused, his smile turning sharp. Actually, Ryan, I wanted to talk to you about that. The room got quiet. The thing is, Marcus said carefully, this reunion is kind of a big deal. A celebration of family success. Everyone's bringing their successful kids. Doctors, lawyers, executives, entrepreneurs. People with real careers and accomplishments to share. I waited. And I think it might be better if you sat this one out. Aunt Susan gasped. Marcus. I'm just being honest, he said, holding up his hands. Ryan, you're almost 32. You're doing whatever it is you're doing. But when Uncle James's kids are talking about their law firms and Cousin Jennifer's daughter is discussing her position at Goldman Sachs, and everyone's sharing their success stories. He trailed off meaningfully. You'd just be the obvious failure. The silence was deafening. I think that's harsh, Mom started weakly. It's honest, Dad said quietly. Marcus has a point. These events are for celebrating achievement. Ryan hasn't really achieved anything notable yet. Nothing to be ashamed of, Marcus added quickly. Not everyone is cut out for high-level success. But why put yourself through the embarrassment? Why be the one person at the reunion with nothing to brag about? Several relatives nodded. Some looked uncomfortable, but no one disagreed out loud. You just be, well. Marcus shrugged. The family disappointment. On display. It might be kinder to spare yourself that. Cousin David laughed. Harsh but probably true. More nervous laughter rippled through the room. I stood there, feeling 40 pairs of eyes on me. Waiting for me to get defensive. To argue. To prove them right by reacting emotionally. Instead I pulled out my phone. Ryan, we're having a family conversation, Mom hissed. I ignored her and opened my secure email. The one connected directly to my firm's executive team. To Jennifer Park, Chief Investment Officer from R. Chen. Subject. Urgent. Riverside Medical Center. Effective immediately. Execute full capital withdrawal from Riverside Medical Center per Section 8.4 of Investment Agreement. Withdraw all $2.7 million in funding. Notify their board and financial team by end of business today. No grace period. I hit send and set my phone face down on the coffee table. Marcus was still talking. And honestly, Ryan, I'm trying to protect you here. When people ask what you do and you have to explain some vague consulting job. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. That's weird. My practice administrator is texting during Easter. His phone buzzed again. Then started ringing. Sorry, I should take this. He stepped toward the hallway. Probably just a patient emergency. Through the archway I watched his expression change. Confusion. Then panic. He came back pale. There's some kind of problem with our funding. Our administrator says our investor just withdrew all their capital. Withdrew? Uncle James asked. What do you mean withdrew? I don't know. He's saying they exercised some clause. But that doesn't make sense. We have a 5-year commitment. They can't just pull out without. His phone rang again. Then his practice's CFO called. Then his lead surgeon. This is insane, Marcus said, his voice rising. That's $2.7 million. We have equipment on order. We have the second location under construction. We have staff hired starting next month. My phone chimed with a confirmation from Jennifer. Done. Full withdrawal executed. $2.7 million returned to fund. Their board has been notified. Legal documentation being sent now. I picked up my water glass and took a sip. Marcus's hands were shaking as he answered another call. Yes, I understand there's a withdrawal clause. But why would, he stopped mid-sentence. His eyes went wide. He looked directly at me. Can you hold on? He lowered the phone. The entire room was staring. Ryan. His voice was barely above a whisper. What's Apex Strategic Holdings? I set down my water glass. It's my investment firm. Dead silence. You're what? Apex Strategic Holdings. I founded it 4 years ago. We manage about 600 million in assets across multiple sectors, including healthcare, technology, and real estate. We have equity positions in 47 companies. I paused. 46 now. Marcus stared at me like I'd started speaking Mandarin. That's not possible. Apex Strategic is our investor. They're a major private equity firm. They have institutional backing. He stopped, his face draining of color. You're saying you're our investor? I corrected. Past tense. As of approximately 10 minutes ago, I instructed my CIO to withdraw all capital from Riverside Medical Center. Your clinic just lost its entire funding round. $2.7 million gone. Dad found his voice. Ryan, this is absurd. You can't expect us to believe you run some kind of investment firm. You live in a townhouse. You drive a old Subaru. I drive a 2017 Subaru Outback because it's reliable, practical, and doesn't draw attention. I live in a modest townhouse because I spend 18 hours a day at my office and only use it to sleep. I dress simply because I don't need to signal wealth to people whose opinions don't matter. I stood up. But if you need proof, my firm occupies 3 floors of the Pinnacle Tower downtown. Or check the business registry. I'm listed as founding partner and CEO. Or Google Apex Strategic Holdings and look at our portfolio companies. Marcus's phone was ringing constantly. Ryan, you can't do this. We have contracts. We have commitments. We have Section 8.4 of your investment agreement, I said calmly. Investor withdrawal clause. Any investor can withdraw capital with 96 hours notice if they determine the investment no longer aligns with their fund's mission or values. I just determined that being called a family failure by my own investment recipient doesn't align with my values. You're destroying my practice. Marcus shouted. Do you have any idea what this means? We have surgeries scheduled. We have patients. You have 96 hours to secure alternative funding, I said. That's 4 days. I suggest you start making calls. Maybe reach out to Uncle James. Or Cousin Jennifer's daughter at Goldman Sachs. Since they're all so successful, surely they can help. The room was completely silent except for Marcus's phone ringing. Mom stood up. Ryan, you're being cruel. Marcus didn't mean. Yes, he did, I interrupted quietly. He meant every word. This wasn't a slip of the tongue or a bad joke. Marcus genuinely believes I'm a failure. You all do. And you know what? That's fine. You're entitled to your opinions. But you're not entitled to my money while holding those opinions. I picked up my jacket. Marcus, your practice is actually quite good. The surgical outcomes are impressive, your patient satisfaction scores are high, and your expansion plans were sound. That's why I invested in the first place. I was proud of what you built. Uncle James said sharply. Past tense. Because 10 minutes ago, my brother told me I was too much of a failure to attend a family reunion. He said I'd be an embarrassment. That I had nothing to brag about. I looked at Marcus. Turns out I had $2.7 million to brag about. But you'll never know if there was more, because you couldn't see past your own arrogance long enough to treat me with basic respect. I walked toward the door. Enjoy your Easter, everyone. And Marcus? Good luck finding new investors. Most firms do serious due diligence. They'll probably ask your current investor why they pulled out. I wonder what I'll tell them. I closed the door behind me to complete silence. I sat in my Subaru for a moment before starting the engine. My phone was already lighting up with texts. Marcus, Ryan, please. We need to talk. Mom, call me immediately. Dad, this is unacceptable behavior. Call your mother. I ignored them all and drove to my real home. The penthouse condo in Harborview Tower that I'd purchased in cash 2 years ago. The townhouse I'd shown my family was actually a rental I kept for appearances. My phone rang. Jennifer Park, my CIO. The medical center's board is in full panic mode, she said without preamble. Their CFO has called 3 times. Their lead investor relations person is practically begging for a meeting. How do you want me to handle this? I thought about it while looking out at the city skyline. Tell them I'm willing to consider reinvestment discussions. But only if Dr. Marcus Chen personally requests a meeting and provides a written acknowledgement of what occurred. Written acknowledgement? He needs to admit in writing that he uninvited me from a family event because he considered me a failure, and that he did so without knowing I was his primary investor. I want accountability before I even consider putting money back in. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. That's brutal. That's business. I'll let them know. For what it's worth. I would have done the same thing. After she hung up, I poured myself a drink and settled into my leather chair. The penthouse was silent except for the distant hum of the city below. My phone buzzed again. A text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Dr. Sarah Kim from Riverside Medical. I'm Marcus's partner. Whatever happened between you two, our patients need continuity of care. Can we please discuss this professionally? I stared at the message. Dr. Kim wasn't family. She didn't deserve to suffer for Marcus's arrogance. But she tied her career to his practice, which meant she tied it to his judgment. I replied, Dr. Kim, I respect your position. My firm will honor all patient-related commitments through the 96-hour notice period. After that, funding decisions are based on institutional relationships, not patient care. If you're concerned about Marcus's leadership affecting your practice, I suggest considering alternative partnerships. Her response came quickly. He really didn't know, did he? No, I wrote back. He didn't. None of them did. Why not tell them? I thought about how to answer that. Finally, because people reveal who they are when they think you have nothing. My family revealed exactly what they think of me. Now they know what I think of investments that insult me. The calls started within hours. First, Aunt Susan apologizing profusely. I had no idea, Ryan. None of us did. If you'd known I was wealthy, you'd have treated me with respect? I interrupted. That's not the defense you think it is, Aunt Susan. Then Cousin David. Bro, I was just joking around. You know how family is. No hard feelings, right? I have very hard feelings, David. You laughed when Marcus said I was an obvious failure. That wasn't a joke to you. That was agreement. Mom called crying. How could you humiliate your brother like this? At a family gathering? You've destroyed everything we built. I destroyed nothing, Mom. I withdrew my investment from someone who publicly humiliated me. If Marcus's practice can't survive without my money, that's a business problem, not a family problem. This is a family problem. Your brothers. Then maybe Marcus should have remembered that before he uninvited me from a reunion because I'm not successful enough for the family image. Dad tried the authoritarian approach. Ryan, I'm ordering you to fix this. Call your firm right now and reinstate that funding. Actually laughed. You're ordering me? Dad, I'm 31 years old and I run a $600 million investment firm. Your ordering days ended about a decade ago. Don't you dare speak to me that way. Or what? You'll be disappointed in me? Join the club. You've been disappointed in me for years. Now I'm just finally disappointing you in ways you can't ignore. I hung up. Marcus himself didn't call until day 3. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Ryan. His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. We need to talk. Do we? My practice is falling apart. The bank is questioning our creditworthiness. Our equipment suppliers are putting orders on hold. 2 surgeons have already started looking at other positions. Patients are calling asking if we're stable. He paused. Please. I'm asking you. Please reconsider. Did you write the acknowledgement I requested? Silence. I didn't think so, I said. You want me to grovel? Is that what this is about? You want me to publicly admit I was wrong so you can feel superior? No, Marcus. I want you to privately acknowledge what you did so you understand why this happened. This isn't about groveling. It's about accountability. You made a decision based on contempt for your own brother. That decision had consequences. Own it. Fine. His voice cracked. Fine. I'll write whatever you want. I was wrong. I was arrogant. I was cruel. I didn't know you were successful and I never bothered to find out because I assumed I was better than you. Is that what you want to hear? I want to hear it in writing. From your work email. To my firm's official correspondence address. A formal acknowledgement of what occurred and why it was inappropriate, regardless of my financial status. Regardless of... He stopped. You'd have pulled the funding even if I'd known you were my investor? If you'd known I was your investor, you never would have said what you said. That's the point, Marcus. You only respect people you think have power. I needed to know if you could respect me without knowing I had it. You couldn't. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Send the acknowledgement, I said. Then we'll talk about reinvestment terms. But Marcus? They won't be the same terms as before. You want my money now? You earn it. With transparency, regular reporting, and a board seat for someone from my firm. No more anonymous investor giving you millions with no oversight. That's humiliating. No, I said quietly. Humiliating is being told you're too much of a failure to attend a family reunion. What I'm offering is business. Take it or leave it. He took it. 3 months later, the family reunion happened as planned. Uncle James had rented the Riverside Country Club for the entire weekend in July. I arrived in a different car this time. Not the Subaru. The Tesla Model S I usually kept in my building's garage. I wore a tailored suit. Tom Ford. The one I'd bought for high-level investor meetings. And I brought a guest, Jennifer Park, my CIO, who'd expressed curiosity about the family that had caused such dramatic business decisions. This is going to be interesting, she murmured as we walked into the country club. The reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. Marcus saw me first. He was standing with a group of cousins looking thinner than I remembered. The last 3 months had been hard on him. His practice had survived, barely, after I'd agreed to reinvest under new, much stricter terms. But the stress had clearly taken its toll. He walked over slowly. Ryan, you came. I was invited to this reunion, I said. Or did you forget? He looked at Jennifer, then back at me. Can we talk? Privately. We stepped out onto the club's terrace. The July evening was warm, the sun just beginning to set over the golf course. I wrote the acknowledgement, Marcus said. Like you asked. And I've been doing the monthly reports for your firm. Answering every question from your oversight team. Following every requirement in the new agreement. I know. I read every report. Did you read the last one? Where I finally admitted that the practice improvements your team suggested actually worked. That having oversight made us better. I nodded. I did. He was quiet for a moment. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not because you control my funding, but because I was genuinely, profoundly wrong about you. About your life. About your choices. About everything. You were. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm sorry I made you feel like a failure. I'm sorry I cared more about appearances than about actually knowing my brother. I'm sorry I was so arrogant that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. I looked at him for a long moment. Do you know why I invested in your practice in the first place? Because it was a good investment? Because you're brilliant at what you do. Because watching you in medical school, seeing your dedication, witnessing your skill, I was genuinely proud of you. I wanted to support that. But I wanted to do it without our family dynamic getting in the way. Without mom and dad making it weird. Without you feeling like you owed me something. I paused. I wanted to help you succeed on your own merit. His eyes welled up. And I thanked you by calling you a failure. Yeah. You did. Is there any way back from this? For us, I mean. Not the business. I know that's on your terms now. But as brothers. I thought about it. Thought about all the years of dismissal, all the condescending comments, all the times he'd made me feel small. But I also thought about the monthly reports where his tone had slowly shifted from resentful to respectful. About the acknowledgement letter where he'd genuinely grappled with his own bias. About the phone call where he'd admitted his practice was better with oversight. Maybe, I said finally. But it starts with you actually getting to know me. Not as the family failure or as your investor. Just as your brother. He nodded. I'd like that. A lot. We walked back inside together. The reunion was in full swing. Cousins showing off promotion letters, aunts bragging about children's accomplishments, uncles comparing golf handicaps. Uncle James spotted me and came over immediately, hand extended. Ryan, Marcus told us you'd be coming. And you must be. Jennifer Park, ICO said smoothly. Ryan's colleague. Wonderful, wonderful. Ryan, I understand congratulations are in order. Marcus finally explained what you've been doing all these years. 600 million under management? That's extraordinary. The nearby conversations stopped. Relatives turned to stare. 640 million now, I corrected. We closed a new fund last month. Aunt Susan appeared, looking embarrassed. Ryan, sweetie, I wanted to apologize again for Easter. If I'd known. Aunt Susan, I interrupted gently. You shouldn't need to know someone's net worth to treat them with respect. That's kind of the whole point. She flushed but nodded. The evening progressed strangely. Relatives who'd ignored me for years suddenly wanted to hear about my work. Cousins who'd laughed at Marcus's comments now asked about investment opportunities. Even Dad approached, awkward and formal, to say he'd underestimated me. Only Mom seemed genuinely remorseful. She pulled me aside before dinner. I failed you, she said quietly. As a mother, I failed you. I let Marcus's success blind me to yours. I let your unconventional path make me ashamed instead of curious. And I'm so sorry. That apology at least felt real. During dinner, Uncle James stood to make a toast. To family success, he declared. We have doctors, lawyers, executives, entrepreneurs. And at least one failure, I said, raising my glass. The room went silent. That's what my brother called me 3 months ago. The obvious failure. Too embarrassing to bring to this reunion. I looked at Marcus, who'd gone pale. He was right in a way. I failed to meet conventional expectations. Failed to follow a traditional path. Failed to care about impressing people who judged me without knowing me. I stood up. But I succeeded in building something that mattered to me. In creating value on my own terms. In proving that success isn't always visible to people who aren't paying attention. I raised my glass higher. So here's to failure. May we all fail at meeting other people's expectations while succeeding at meeting our own. For a moment no one moved. Then Marcus stood, raising his glass. To failure, he said quietly. And to the brother who taught me that success isn't always what it looks like from the outside. One by one the family stood. Raised their glasses. Drank to a toast that meant something different to each of them. Later, as Jennifer and I were leaving, Marcus caught up with us in the parking lot. Ryan, wait. He looked nervous. I know I don't have the right to ask this, but the practice has been doing really well. Your oversight team has been incredible. And I was wondering if maybe we could get coffee sometime. Just us. No business. Just brothers. I looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the genuine hope in his eyes. The real change in his posture. The humility that hadn't been there before. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. His relief was visible. Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on me even when I gave up on you. You're my brother, I said simply. Even when you're being an idiot, you're still my brother. He laughed, and for the first time in years it sounded genuine. As Jennifer and I drove away from the country club, she shook her head in amazement. That was the most expensive lesson in humility I've ever witnessed, she said. $2.7 million to teach your brother not to be an arrogant ass. I smiled. Worth every penny. Was it though? Really? I thought about Marcus's acknowledgement letter. About the monthly reports that showed real growth. About the conversation on the terrace where he'd finally seen me as a person, not a comparison. About the coffee invitation that suggested a real relationship might be possible. Yeah, I said. It really was. Because some lessons are worth whatever they cost. And some relationships are worth fighting for, even when the other person doesn't know you're fighting. 3 months later, Marcus and I had coffee every Sunday. We talked about everything except money and medicine. We rebuilt something we'd lost years ago before success and failure became the only metrics that mattered. And Riverside Medical Center? It thrived under proper oversight, eventually becoming one of the top orthopedic practices in the region. But the best investment I ever made wasn't the $2.7 million I put into Marcus's practice. It was the $2.7 million I withdrew. Because that's what finally made him see me.